Thank you all for coming this evening. I'm so delighted to be here, virtually representing Longfellow Books and the Maine Writers and Publishers Alliance for what is going to be a fascinating and entertaining conversation between two beloved Maine authors. Christina Baker Kline is the best-selling author of 8 novels, including Orphan Train, A Piece of the World, both of which have been optioned for movies, and most recently, her book, The Exiles. She has won the New England Prize for Fiction and the Maine Literary Award. Her essays, articles, and reviews have appeared in the New York Times and the New York Times Book Review, LitHub, Salon, as well as many other notable publications. Splitting her time between Southwest Harbor, Maine and New York City, Christina supports numerous literary organizations and funds 2 scholarships. Her newest book, The Exiles, is a powerful, emotionally resonant novel that captures the hardship, oppression, opportunity, and hope of 4 women's lives: 3 English convicts and an orphaned Aboriginal girl in 19th century Australia. Christina Baker Kline has established herself as a novelist who plumbs noteworthy but little-known facets of the past, and The Exiles marks her 3rd foray into the genre and confirms Kline's place among the finest talents writing today. While most English convicts transported to Australia were men, 25,000 were women. Kline explores the development of Australia from a fresh perspective, telling the story of this fascinating, blood-soaked land and its legacy with the grace, beauty, empathy, and insight, and the rich, full-bodied characters that are the hallmarks of her work. Monica Wood is a novelist, memoirist, and playwright, and a dear friend to all of us at Longfellow Books. Her most recent novel, The One in a Million Boy, has been published in 22 languages and won a 2017 Nautilus Award and the New England Society Book Award. Her memoir, When We Were the Kennedys, was a New England bestseller, Oprah Magazine Summer Reading Pick, and winner of the May Sarton Memorial Award and the 2016 Maine Literary Award. Her widely anthologized short stories have won a Pushcart Prize and been featured on public radio. She also writes books for writers and teachers. Her nonfiction has appeared in Oprah, the New York Times, Martha Stewart Living, and many other publications. Her first play, Papermaker, debuted at Portland Stage in an extended run, its best-selling play ever. Monica has the uncanny ability to construct characters and places that are simultaneously unique and familiar, with perfectly selected words, creating stories that resonate with readers worldwide. And tonight, we're celebrating the re-release of Ernie's Arc, The Abbott Falls Stories, a collection of 10 interlinked stories in which the town of Abbott Falls, Maine, reacts to Ernie Whitten, a pipe fitter, as he builds an ark in his backyard. The community itself is struggling to survive as a strike at the local paper mill wears on. These stories became the foundation for the play, Papermaker, and few writers can capture the extraordinary within seemingly ordinary lives like Monica, who has created in this book an unforgettable tapestry of love, loneliness, and neighbors. After many years out of print, this beautiful new edition from David R. Godine, this beautiful edition, includes a never-before published story and a new afterword. If anyone would like any signed copies of, signed or personalized copies of Monica's books, please let us know when you purchase them. I will be putting the link up to order both Monica's and Christina's books in the chat. And you can just put a comment there that you'd like personalized copies and we can make that happen for you. And if anyone has questions tonight as the evening goes on, if you put them in the chat, we will coordinate a way to get those asked as well. So with that, thank you again from Longfellow Books and MWPA, and take it away, ladies.
All right, yay, thank you. Gosh, don't we sound awesome when people introduce us, Christina?
I know, and that was such a beautiful introduction.
Isn't that lovely?
So many accolades. It was very exciting.
Yeah, thank you, Longfellow Books. We love you.
Yay, very exciting. I'm so honored to be here tonight with you. And this is the most gorgeous book. It is so beautiful, Monica.
I know, I love it.
Edging. My book, Orphan Train, had a well, I guess they all do now have decal edgings. But anyway, there was an Amazon review. And the only thing the Amazon review said was that, that they had cut the pages wrong. And so they were messy. The pages were messy. And you have
my God.
Flaps, and it feels so lovely, and it's just the perfect size and the most gorgeous cover.
And you know what the cover image is, Christina?
What is it?
It's the Rumford Mill.
Wow.
It's the mill that
image.
In which, yeah, I grew up in the shadow of that mill. Yeah, it's the cover I've always wanted for that book, and I finally got it.
It's perfect.
Yeah, thank you.
Monica, I want to toast you,
Thank you.
on this night of the reissue of this gorgeous edition that just goes to show you that books are forever. Ideas live in the world, and it's such a beautiful book, and now it has a very beautiful shell, and it also will be read by people who haven't read it yet, which is very exciting. You must be so thrilled about
I am very thrilled. Thank you.
So I want to congratulate you.
Okay, I hope everybody brought champagne, but thank you all for being here. I can't see all of you, but I know you're out there. Thank you so much. And thanks, Christina. You're such a good friend.
Well, yeah. So now should I talk about how we met just quickly?
Okay, but first I want to toast you.
Okay.
I want to toast this beautiful book. Christina is, I think, the best historical novelist around. This is the new one. It's called The Exiles. And it is, as Lucinda said, about these three women who are convicts who are sent to Australia in 19th century. And it's such a beautiful story of women's friendships under the most trying circumstances. And I just ate it up and loved it even more than some of your other books. And I'm such a fan of yours, but this one really, really got right to my heart. I really, truly did. So,
well, yeah, it's that's a good segue for me into how we met, because, I don't think I've ever said this to you, and I'm not sure I ever even quite realized it until this minute. But Monica, in a way, the way we met resulted in my book, in that I wanted to teach. I was teaching at the college level, and I wanted to teach a workshop in a women's prison. I had taught in Bangor many years ago, growing up in Bangor. I taught in the county jail, and I lived in New Jersey at the time. This was how long ago? 7, 8 years ago?
I think it was 6 or 7 years ago. Yeah.
I think it was 2012, actually. So,
okay.
And because I can remember exactly. Yeah. And, anyway, I don't remember who our mutual friend was, but
I think it was Deborah Spark, but I'm not positive.
Right. Okay. Who said that you were teaching in a women's prison, and she connected us. And I was already a fan of yours because I used your little book on writing, books on writing.
Oh, the Pocket Muse.
Students.
Yeah.
I would always bring them in with my books on craft, the Stephen King one, the Anne Lamott, Bird by Bird. Yeah. And your books just had the most inspiring quotes and prompts, and my students loved them. So I already was a huge fan. And I knew, of you, and you of course are the Queen of Maine. So I knew all that. So I was starstruck when I talked to you, but more than that, you really helped me navigate teaching in a prison, having done it yourself, but emotionally. And I took notes in our conversation, and I also, I took notes after the classes, and you helped me kind of figure out how to be in that experience. And I used those notes when I was writing this book. And
you did? Oh my gosh.
Yeah, the sort of psychological complexity of it, and of the experience of these women. You just had so many insights into that. So I want to thank you for that.
Well, you are welcome. Yeah, I would love to be the Queen of Maine. Is that a job?
It should be a title.
It should be. I love that. I like it.
Yeah. So, okay, so let's get started, because everybody's here really to talk about you and not me teaching in a prison. I want to ask how this happened, this reissue, and when it was first published, and what the reception was like at the beginning, and then how that led eventually to.
Okay, so Ernie's Ark was first published in, I think, 2002. And it had a hardcover, which, like most hardcovers, did nothing. And then it did a little better in paperback. But, it was a book, it's stories, and stories don't sell the way novels do. So it had a lot going against it. But it's always been my favorite. And it also had a long life, despite the fact that it was a book of connected stories and that I wasn't very well known back then, and all of these things. It had a really long life. So it ended up being, it was, and you've had your books, done this way before, but community read. And I just love those. Everybody's reading the same book. And this one, especially for communities in New England and especially Northern New England, this book was perfect for that because so many people had gone through a mill strike or a factory strike of some kind. But anyway, I was doing a reading a couple of years ago, and it must have been for the 1 in a Million boy, or a talk or something. And my husband, Dan, was standing in the back of the room with Josh Bodwell, who is the head guy, executive editor, or whatever they call it. Anyway, he's the guy now at David R. Gadeen, publisher. And Josh turned to Dan and said, Ernie's Ark is really my favorite of all her books. And Dan said, yeah, too bad it's out of print. And Josh says, what? And the wheels started turning, and he said, well, it's not going to be out of print for long. And then once he got his paws on it, it ended up being this lovely book. So yeah, that's how it happened. And once it did happen, it happened really fast. So yeah, I feel very lucky.
It's so exciting. It does seem like a fast process.
Yeah, it was. I mean, you know how long it usually takes, but it's not like it didn't need copy editing. It didn't need, it just needed to be put in new clothes.
Exactly. So did you do have you written about this experience at all of writing the book, or?
I did an afterword for the book, which talks about its life, its slow and long life. And also, when the book first came out, it's the only kind of protracted argument I've ever had with an editor. It had 10 stories originally, and the original book had 9 because my editor took one of them out.
And what story?
There were good reasons to take it out. It's not that it was a bad story, but it's the only one that didn't take place in Maine. It took place in Alaska. And it also was a slightly colder story that, how stories have temperatures, and the others are very warm. And this one was a little cool to cold. And he just felt it didn't fit the temperature of the whole book. And I remember talking with him. I was sitting right here for an hour. And finally I said, I'm too close. And this is how I always am. I almost always let the editor kind of do the right thing when I don't know how to do it. So I think for the original edition, it was the right thing not to include that book. But in this version, now I have a new editor, Josh, and he insisted that I put it in. And he didn't even know there was another story. And we were chit-chatting on the phone one day, and I said, oh, and I mentioned it just kind of, and again, he said, what? Back up, there's another story. I said, oh, yeah, it doesn't really fit. It goes, no, send it to me. So I sent it to him, and we did I don't even think I did any work on that. I really changed almost nothing in this book.
Yeah, I was going to ask you that next because it's so tempting. I am always tempted. It is tempting. When a few years after Orphan Train came out, they did a new edition, and I actually added a chapter, and I re-edited the whole book.
You did?
Yeah, I would. But you did not for this book?
I didn't. I think maybe if it had come out 3 years ago, I might have. But 12 years ago, it's almost like rewriting somebody else,
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the other thing, I don't know how you feel about your older work. I mean, Orphan Train's one thing. That's a relatively recent book for you.
Yeah.
But if you were looking at, your earlier books, your contemporary books that were set in contemporary time, would you really? I mean, it's like, just let them be what they are.
Yeah.
I always feel like I wrote the best book I could possibly write with what I had at the time.
Exactly.
And I think once you start messing with that, it's really going to show. It's going to look like two writers, because two writers did. I'm not the same writer I was in 2002. So in the end, I decided to change nothing.
So what I was going to ask, what I'd like to ask is, how do you see your writing changing from Ernie's Ark until now?
Oh my gosh. Well, I think you can tell the same person wrote all my books. But it's funny, between the memoir and now, I wrote 2 plays. And I think and right now just about to start another big draft of a new novel. I've got one draft, really solid draft. And I realize when I'm going through it, it's very dialogue heavy, more than I really want it to be. So eventually it won't be quite that dialogue heavy, but I think that my work playwriting has had a little kind of seeped into my my work. I can see it.
I can see that. Do you feel that dialogue has become more natural for you, or did you always love writing dialogue?
I've always loved dialogue. That's the first thing I ever started writing. I can remember being like 12 and writing little, in French class, we used to call them dictées. And they're just little, like 4 or 5 line dialogue things, just two people talking about whatever. And I had this little notebook, and I would write with the name of the person with a colon and then their line. And I liked just writing dialogue. I loved it. That was my biggest joy of writing when I was first writing, seriously.
Yeah, I can really see that. You've got such a gift for it. And I was thinking,
Thanks.
When I read One in a Million Boy, that book has so much dialogue.
It does have a lot of dialogue.
And that it's very kinetic and movement. There's all this movement and humor in it. And it helps your books sort of read very quickly, which is a wonderful quality that I think.
It is, isn't it? But don't you find when people say to you, oh, I loved your book, I read it like in one afternoon, I just couldn't, and I'm thinking, oh my God, it took me 4 years to write it. Can you just slow down just a little bit, please?
For different reasons, and some people just want to barrel through, but it's true. And when
I know
how you agonized over a sentence or a paragraph. And
and people just go zip. Yeah, it's like setting a huge table, with all the everything and the gorgeous food. Not that I've ever done that, but it's this beautiful meal, and people just scarf it down in 10 minutes, and then the experience is over.
It's true. But the book still exists, whereas the lasagna is gone forever.
It's the truth.
That was one thing I thought about a lot when my kids were little, was that all the time, all the meals that would disappear, whereas if I could write even just a page a day, I had it for good.
So Monica, I wanted to ask you something about writing, Christina.
Okay.
So all of your early people, like you, most people kind of discovered me more with when we were the Kennedys. And so they only really know the two, and when we were the Kennedys and the One in a Million Boy. And a lot of people in Maine know Ernie's Arc, but it's just kind of, it's funny how, you've got all of these your whole backlist that people don't really know about. And your whole backlist is not historical fiction. It is contemporary fiction. And so I'm going to ask you, because I'm really curious about this, is writing historical fiction easier in some ways than contemporary fiction because the story you have is sort of preordained, or at least largely preordained? Is it easier?
It's much harder, in my view, to write fiction set in the past, just because there are so many balls that you spin in the air. When I did an event with Lily King, we were talking about research and the immersion of euphoria for her and the world for me. And we're talking about her new book. And I said, well, it's set in the 90s and you probably had to do research. She's like, no, I didn't. It was so easy. I mean, my friends who've gone back to contemporary writing say, like, yes, you have to research a few things, but it's completely different. Actually my first novel is as historical as Orphan Train. Orphan Train is only a third of it is set.
That's true. You have 2 stories in that one, right?
And the same with my first novel, that I had this alternating story. So I kind of always had a sense of that. But I have intended to go back to contemporary fiction. And I just keep
finding these stories. Thank you, honey. I have my wine steward here. Thank you.
Very nice. Hi, Dan.
Hi, Christina. How are you?
I'm great.
How'd you know it was me?
I just guessed. It's a wine steward.
Well, I know what you mean, because in the One in a Million Boy, it is set. It's a contemporary story, but because the character is 104 years old, any memory she had it was from decades and decades ago. So, you know, I'd be looking up things like what kind of shoes people wore in 1912.
Exactly.
Or like, like the smallest little thing. All I would want to write is about her memory of walking across the street to the music store. I'm thinking, okay, what does the street look like? Did they have awnings or didn't they? What kind of instruments would be in the thing? You know, what would she be wearing? What kind of hairstyle would she, you know, it was like every little thing. It drove me crazy.
Yeah,
So
it's
I can
very
see
odd.
how, yeah.
That's true. Well, I have a related question maybe, which is, does the main of Ernie's Arc still exist?
The main of Ernie's Arc? Oh,
Yeah.
that's a really good question, Christina. Well, not yes and no. Obviously it's based on Mexico and Rumford, Abbott Falls, and there's still a mill there. It's called Nine Dragons, and one of the lines, I don't think it's in Ernie's Arc, but it's in the play Papermaker that I wrote based on Ernie's Arc. And one of the lines is, there's a big to-do between the CEO of the paper company and Ernie, who is the vice president in the play. He's the vice president of the union. And it's 3 months now they've been on strike. And through a lot of different circumstances, they end up in the same place at the same time. And they're having it out. And the CEO, Henry John McCoy, who is in Ernie's Arc as well, says to Ernie, well, you know, look at it from my point of view, you know, they're coming for us, my friend. And Ernie says, who? And he says, the Chinese, for one, who invented paper. And the current owner of the Rumford Mill is Nine Dragons from guess where?
Wow.
Yeah. So, but this is the thing that's so interesting. Beforehand, because the mill has changed hands many times in the last 20 years. Sometimes they have been paper companies. The first time they changed over, they had been owned by the same family for 75 years. Wow. And then the Ethel Corporation bought it. And the Ethel Corporation was basically oil and I don't know what else they did, not a paper company. And that's when things began to get really hard. And then there were strikes and there were all these, and then there was just before Nine Dragons bought it, it was owned by New Page, which is a holding company. I mean, they didn't have any interest whatsoever in making paper, but Nine Dragons is actually a paper company. And now there's a vacant, like an old, it's beautiful, actually beautiful brick building that they are now rehabbing for executive offices. And there's a little glimmer of hope right now in town that I have not seen in a really long time. So it's interesting. But then if you look all over, you know, you look at Millinocket and Bucksport and a dozen other places where the mills are just plain gone. Right. So it does in some ways. I think the spirit of the town still lives that way. You know, there's still people, you know, neighbors helping neighbors. But there's also in some towns still that old animosity from old strikes that were really bad.
Are the workers today, do you know, unionized?
Yes. Yes, they are still unionized. And ironically, I think this happened in Jay. I could be wrong about this. And I'm sure there's someone on this, at this party right now who knows, but they decertified in Jay. They had a really awful strike and they decertified the union. And then the union came back. And ironically, some of the people who had crossed this picket line are now in the union that they have now. I mean, the ironies are endless. Yeah. Right.
Do you feel there's been a sort of fancification of the town at all? Has it become, you know,
fancification? Sort of quite the opposite.
Yeah.
Quite the opposite. Yeah. It looks like a town, you know, down on its luck. But I think the last couple of times I've gone up, and I go up a lot. Well, COVID is hard. I haven't been up. I've only been up once in 6 months. But the last time I went up, which wasn't very long ago, I noticed that, I don't know, there just seemed to be something like there was a new restaurant. A couple of places that had been boarded up weren't boarded up. And I thought, oh my gosh, there's a hotel going up, which is a miracle. So there's something happening, and I just pray that it's real.
Yeah. Well, and also, as we know, COVID has been so hard for these small towns.
Yeah.
So it feels like it's all been kind of reset now, and it's hard to quite know what will happen next or when.
I know.
Okay, so I was wondering, you said, I don't know if I should say this, but I'm going to. A few years ago, I think, or maybe even just a year ago, we had a conversation where you said you thought you might not write novels anymore.
I know, I did say that.
Are you allowed to say that?
Yes.
And now here you are with a novel.
Oh my God, I know, Christina. What happened was last summer.
Why did you feel that way too?
It wasn't that I was like, oh, I'm sick of the writing biz and it's horrible and dysfunctional, which is all true, as you know. No, it was more like I thought, well, I really love writing plays, so I'm going to just keep doing that. And then so many things have changed. So many things have changed. And I feel like one of the biggest changes, with all of the Black Lives Matter movement, I think one of the biggest changes is going to be in theater. And I honestly don't think American theater needs my voice right now. I really don't think so. It's not, I just think I have a play that I'm kind of working on, but I think there's going to be some big changes that are long overdue. But that's not the reason. This novel just arrived, as novels sometimes do. And it's the first time I have ever had anything come to me suddenly like that. It was last summer, and I started hearing, I don't know if this happens to you, but you start hearing like these monologues, and they're fictional characters. And I remember I was writing a play at the time, but I knew they weren't play characters. And I remember saying out loud, I'm sorry, I'm a playwright now, go find somebody else. Because I really didn't want to commit all that time to a novel. I just didn't. And, but they were very persistent. And so I wrote everything down in this notebook right here. I still have it. It's a great notebook. It's called Notes for Novel. This is it.
Can you open it and just show us what it looks like?
Yeah, it's just all hand scratching mostly.
Wow.
Yeah.
And this was just for that novel?
Just for that novel. It's right now the title is Meanwhile. What do you think?
I don't know. Meanwhile?
I don't know. I have a few titles, but anyway, all I can say is,
can you tell us a little bit about it?
It's a little part of it. You're going to laugh at this, but part of it takes place in a prison. And so there are three characters. One's name is Violet, and she has just gotten out of prison for vehicular manslaughter, in which she was driving drunk and killed a woman. And the other character is Frank, who's the widower of the woman she killed. And the other person is Harriet, who was the book club lady who did a book club in the prison. And the three of them, through all different machinations, sort of form a little friendship on the outside. I mean, this is what I write about. I write about families forming out of spare parts. Yes. And this is that. But I'm really enjoying it. I love the characters. And I wrote a very solid first draft in 1 year, which is a flippin' miracle for me. I am the slowest writer on earth. And I'm thinking I actually might have a novel a 2-year novel, which would be a miracle. That would be half of my normal time.
That's amazing, though. A year to get a full draft out.
Yeah, isn't that amazing?
Anyone? Have you shown it to anyone?
I've read some of it to Dan, but I showed it to. I have a writing group. This is the other thing. I think this is why I've done it so fast. I've never had a writing group before, and I have one now. And it's Bill Rohrbach. You know all these people. Do you know Sarah Bronstein?
I know her.
She's a beautiful writer. Kate Christensen and Lewis Robinson, and they are fantastic readers. We read. Bill writes big novels now, and we've read like 600 pages at a crack for him. And when we read big chunks of prose for each other multiple times, and I just feel so committed to this group. And I think it's made all of our writing better. I can't believe I never had a writing group before this, but
I've never had a writing group. That's amazing.
I love it.
We're all obligated to read each other's work. What a great incentive for all of you.
Mm.
God, Monica, how do you have the time? I mean, blurbing and talking and all the stuff that we do, in addition to our own work, how do you have the time for all of it?
Well, I could ask you the same question, little
I'm
miss.
asking you.
I feel like I have plenty of time right now. I mean, one thing, I think if it hadn't been for COVID, I would not have this draft right now.
Yeah.
But, you know, certainly, you know, March, April, May, June, I'm looking at my calendar. There is literally nothing on it. I mean, everything I had scheduled through the end of the year was canceled.
Right.
And then they figured out, you know, how to do Zoom stuff. But, you know, I don't know how you feel about it. Do you miss traveling for books? I don't know if I do or not.
I miss the concentrated aspect of it. And I miss meeting booksellers, meeting people who read the book, being able to talk to them. Like right now, you've got 90 people here or something, and we can't see any of them. I'd love, you know, I love looking at an audience and being able to talk to people about what they're up to and what.
I know.
It feels very strange and solipsistic to live on Zoom.
It does. I agree completely. I really miss meeting the booksellers a lot. And there's nothing like meeting readers face to face. And they tell you their stories, and sometimes the stories are really poignant and stay with you. You know, it's just really something.
The travel can be tough, but I find this a little disorienting.
It is a little disorienting.
So speaking of which, are you going to be doing more events for the book? And
I'm not doing very much for this. I'm doing something next. If everybody wants to come, I'm just check it out on Facebook. But do you know Jim Nichols? He's a Maine writer. He's a really, really good writer. And he wrote a short novel that I read this summer that I absolutely loved called Blue Summer. And it's about the main character is a trumpet player. And the way he talks about music, playing music, making music, the experience inside the music is so beautiful. So I'm going to be doing a thing with him next week, and I can't wait to ask him about his musical background, because there's no way he doesn't have a musical background. So I'm doing that. And then at the end of I don't know if you've ever done the Blue Hill Word Festival. And they're doing it, well, it's online. So it's at the end, I think it's at the end of October. I'm doing something with Carrie Arsenal, who wrote a book called Milltown. Believe it or not, it's about Mexico, Maine.
Well, I've been seeing that book everywhere, actually.
Yeah, it's doing really well.
Great.
Yeah, it's hard to describe. It's kind of a hybrid book. I think I have it here. I don't have it right out here. But
in fact, I think it was in Shelf Awareness today, maybe.
Yeah. Good for her.
Or maybe
yeah.
But
it's partly a memoir and partly kind of an investigative journey into pollution, really, in the 60s and 70s and to the present day, and what the mill hid from the public. And so it's partly a kind of a investigative journalism, but it's also a memoir about her own experience growing up there. She's probably 15 years younger than me. So it's a slightly different era. But
what great pairing that will be.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a really interesting discussion.
And who's doing that discussion?
I don't know. I don't know if this is going to be a moderator. I think it's just the two of us. But it's the Blue Hill Word. It's Word. Yeah, Word Festival. Yeah. So
that's really great.
So I'm looking at you in your little place. I know you're in. Can I say where you are?
Yes, Southwest Harbor, Maine.
Yeah, you're in Southwest Harbor. And you also live in New York, but you've been, well, it's a great place to be in exile, but you've been here since March, right?
Yeah, right.
So here you are. So you've got are you in your workspace now, or are you in a different space?
This is really my Zoom space.
Oh, your Zoom space.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're in a cottage, and there's a tiny little spare bedroom. And because I've been on tour from home for the past month, I have events almost every day. And so this is where I do them. And so I just leave it all set up with the
that's really good.
And the microphone.
Is that an Anne Ireland painting behind you?
That is a Henry Isaacs.
Oh, it is. It's beautiful.
He's wonderful. I wrote a catalog copy for his new exhibit, and he gave me this painting, which is so nice.
Wow.
I already love his work, so I already have, I've bought some.
Wow.
But yeah, it just arrived in the mail. And
That is very cool.
exciting.
Well,
So,
I wanted to ask you, because I know you set up somewhere to do work.
Yes.
If there's something, because writers are sort of famously superstitious, they have to have the right coffee cup and all that jazz. And I wonder if there's anything that you take with you from your New York space to your Southwest Harbor space and back and forth.
So I really thought we were coming up for 10 days. I had no idea we'd be staying so long. And now we're going to stay through the new year. I mean, I have to go back for doctor's appointments at one point in December, but
plus clothes.
It just keeps getting, the news doesn't improve. And New York is kind of a nightmare right now.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, a lot of people are changing their lives completely, and there's just a lot of talk. If my husband didn't have a job until 6 months ago, he needed to be in New York for his job, working for Showtime Networks, and now who knows how the world will change. I mean, it is fascinating. Yeah. So anyway, I didn't bring all the stuff that I usually have, the kind of, the thing, my favorite coffee cup and things like that. I really thought we were just going to come up quickly. But I also have kind of learned that, because we moved from Montclair into New York City, and then we bought a house here, and I have kind of learned that I have to be flexible about all of the things that I can get kind of rigid about. So as long as I have my college ruled paper and my special pen, I have a special Uniball that I love that I
let me see it.
It's a P500 extra fine black Uniball. And Tyler uses this pen. I saw that in an interview. They had discontinued my pen, and I was freaking out about it.
How dare they?
And Tyler said she hoards this pen. So I immediately ordered it, and I love it. And it's better than my old pen. So
excellent.
Anyway, so as long as I have my pen and my pad of paper and my clipboard, I can kind of be anywhere at this point. And I used to write in coffee shops, but now I'm kind of, my children are gone, so I write at home. But wait, quick, back to you. What about you? Because I know you have this beautiful writing studio.
I do. Here it is. Dan built it for me 30 years ago now. I've had this for a long time. It's separate from my house. It's right in the back of my house. And I have things that I travel with. One of them is this little, where is it? Here he is. This little birdie, and it's a little cast iron bird. Isn't he cute?
Yeah.
It's heavy too. It's heavy. And I bought one for me and for everybody in my writing group. So I bring it with me wherever I am. So it's sort of like them saying, okay, we're watching you. We know, don't try to.
I'm a big bird. I have birds myself, not in this house, but I love that. I have
a lot of birds too. Yeah. And then I have this. You're gonna love this, Christina. I have my Tammy doll from when I was 10. Okay, get a load of this. So this, they had all these outfits. So this is Tammy's, and this is Tammy as the reporter. And this is the outfit I wanted. Look at this. It's got a little camera. This is so cute. She has little glasses. And I had glasses just like that. And so it reminds me that I wanted this life a long time ago.
That is
really long time ago. Isn't she adorable though?
Yes.
This is a little wool sheath skirt and a little button up. I mean, it's so 60s. I just love it.
She's in such good shape too. I mean,
this is not the original Tammy. I bought her on eBay. I found her on eBay and just about died. So yeah. So that's Tammy. I got her for my 10th birthday.
It's really spectacular. I love it. And then that cat with the tail, the clock.
Oh, isn't it great? I know. I have so many things. I also have this dog. I bought this dog. I paid a ridiculous amount of money for this stupid dog. Look at it. I could not resist. I got it at the farmer's market. And this guy, And I just said, he needs to be in my studio. So he is.
You don't even have dogs. You have cats.
I know, I do. But he's just so cute. I love dogs. I just don't, I don't have one because I have a cat.
Do you have fresh flowers back there? Those are very beautiful.
No, they look fresh, but they're fake hydrangeas.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
For a little bit of the outdoors in.
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
Love it. Well, so do you, when you're not working on a novel, do you still go out to your office every day? Like, what is your schedule like?
That's a good question. It depends on what I'm working on, I guess. I mean, I feel like I'm always working on something. So I am out here a lot. I mean, right now I'm out here a lot because I am working on a novel.
Right.
But sometimes I come out here just to read. For one thing, it's so warm out here. It takes nothing to heat it up. So in the winter, sometimes it's so cold. I'll come out of the house and come in here just to read because it's nice and cozy warm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's such a cozy space.
Yeah, it is a really cozy space. I feel like we're ignoring our party guests a little bit.
Yeah,
Like maybe we should let them ask questions or.
Can I just ask, or I don't know if.
I don't know if Gibson was. Oh, here's Gibson. Hi, Gib.
Hey, I think we're many of us are just enjoying hearing you two talk. This is wonderful.
Oh my God, Frank Scruggs. Hi, Frank.
We do have a great audience here and lots of comments coming, lots of appreciation of both of you.
Aw.
And let's see, we do have Jewel Selbo had a question.
Hi, Jewel.
Jewel, I'm wondering if you want to ask you could unmute yourself and ask your question yourself. Give her a sec.
Oh, there's Cynthia. Hi, Cynthia. Oh, Robin's there. Oh, look at this. This is really a party. I'm seeing people now. Oh, there's Bill.
Yeah.
Oh, Nicole. Oh my God, look at all these great people. Oh, I love it. Anne. Oh.
All right, is someone asking a question?
Yeah, I don't know. What's going on? Sorry.
Let me just ask.
All right.
Yeah. I'm getting an internet. Okay, let's see. Jewel Selba wants to know, is the change in writing as one grows up in craft? Are you aware of it as happening? Are you aware of it as it is happening? Or is it just in looking back?
Oh, wow, what a good question. Well, Christina, I'm sure you don't feel like the same writer you were 20 years ago.
No, but I think everybody wants to hear you answer this question, Monica.
Well, but I'm saying this from writer to writer is, I do think there are certain things craft-wise that I think I am better at than I was 20 years ago, but I really honestly think getting older is the biggest thing. You have more of everything behind you. More tragedy, more joy, more experience, more insight, more everything. And craft can be taught, but experience has to be just experienced, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I think in my case, I think that with each book, I'm setting myself new challenges, and it feels that's felt precipitous. And so I always feel that the last book is the best. For one thing, I spent 25 years editing other people's work because I always, as a writer, you make a living and you write, and sometimes they're the same and sometimes they're not. And so I always worked teaching, as I said, teaching at the college level or as a freelance editor. And I edited hundreds and hundreds of other people's manuscripts. And I think it just made me a much better editor of my own work.
Yeah.
So over time, I got better at that. And to me, so much of writing is editing. And I tell my students that, if you can, so my first drafts have gotten quicker, although like you, I'm not fast. I mean, that sounds fast to me, by the way. A year for a draft is amazing.
I think it's very fast.
Super fast. Although I did an event with John Grisham last week or a little while ago, and he's like, he pops out a book every.
Those people just forget it. They just
quarter.
spawn of Satan. I
I
hate
know.
them all.
No, it's crazy. But I do think that I write more quickly in the first draft now, but then I have a lot more to revise, and I work so hard on the revision over and over again.
Yeah.
So that, I think you do. I feel that I have, I hope, gotten better as I've gotten older.
Yeah, that was a really good question.
That was a great question. We have another one from Bernadette Poppy. Bernadette, I'm wondering if you want to come on and ask your question.
Hey, Bernadette, another Mexico girl. Where is she? I know she was here.
Hi, Monica.
Hi.
I remember one time at a book group, we asked you about a book that, if you could mention a book that struck a chord with you. And you mentioned this crazy book, We Need to Talk About Kevin. It was like one of the most shocking.
Lionel
And
Shriver,
it was such a great recommendation. I'm wondering if either one of you, besides Milltown, which you've mentioned, which is such a great book, if either one of you have read a book recently that has really struck a chord with you.
Well, besides the Exiles, I'm kind of on a Kevin Wilson jag, and he wrote one of my favorite comic novels called The Family Fang. Have you read that, Christina?
No, but I have his new one, which is amazing.
It's fantastic. It's called Nothing to See Here.
Yeah, with the dress on the cover. Yeah.
I highly recommend it. It's a very odd, all of his stuff is a little odd and cracked, but it's ultimately a family novel. It's about the heart and human connection. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
2 thumbs up for that one. So yeah, Nothing to See Here, and The Exiles, and also Blue Summer by Jim Nichols. It's a really terrific book.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Well, of course.
Another one too is Beneficence by Meredith Hall. Oh, Christina, you have got to read.
I'm writing it down.
This book. It's called Beneficence by Meredith Hall, and it's about a farm family in Maine who, in 1940-ish, it's like right around World War II, so 45-ish. And they have this kind of Eden of a life, and something terrible happens to completely upend this perfect, loving family. And it's about how they work themselves back to wholeness again. And it's not easy, and it takes a long time. And the writing is, oh my gosh, you want to eat the words. They're so beautiful. So
I love books like that, as you know. So
you will love it. Do you have a recommendation?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I'm reading Britt Bennett's new book, which is a huge hit. Britt Bennett, #1 New York Times, but she's African-American, and it's just this very rich story, gorgeously told. And now I can't remember the name.
Is it the one about the twins?
Yes.
Oh, I wasn't sure. I thought that sounded kind of, I don't know what, but
it's really.
Oh, I will read. It's called The Vanishing Half or something like that.
Yes. The Vanishing Half, I believe.
Okay.
And then the new Elena Ferrante, The Lying Lives of Adults.
I have not read one word of her.
I just fall into her.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. I mean, it's sort of immersive, and you just have to let it wash over you.
Do I have to start at the beginning with her?
So what I would do if I were you is in some ways my favorite novel of hers is a short novel that she wrote about the dissolution of a marriage called the Days of Abandonment, and it's only about 200 pages or so, and it's so brilliant. And it's so hot though. All of her writing is very hot, meaning emotional, meaning go to the core of what her characters are feeling. And so if you're turned off by that book, don't read her other books.
Okay, I'll start with the 200-page one.
Yeah, and just to give yourself a taste of it. I loved that book, and I knew then that I was ready to jump into her other work. But some people don't love her. So, but I will tell you that the book that surprised me was I discovered this writer, Miriam Toews, Toews, Tours, I believe.
Okay.
It's called All My Puny Sorrows. And
I've heard about
oh my
that.
God, I can't even believe how brilliant this book is. It's so beautifully written. It's so heartbreaking, but also so filled with heart.
That's not
And
a new book though, is it?
it's not a new book.
No.
I started by reading her new book, newish book,
Ah,
and I think
okay.
maybe a bigger seller, called Women Talking, but I didn't like it as much. I moved from that to All My Puny Sorrows, and I was flabbergasted. I mean, how often do you read a book that you finish it and you think, I want to read this book again now? I actually want to read this book again now and see how she did that. That was the feeling I had with that book. So,
You know, the only book I've ever read where I went to the end and started, I just turned the last page and went right back to the beginning, was Remains of the Day by Kazuo Ishiguro. I just read it twice, right in a row. I didn't even pause. I didn't want to leave the world. I was so killed by emotion that I didn't want to leave.
well, and I think, you know, I don't know if non-writers, I call them civilians. I don't know if non-writers do this exactly, but that book is a great example because I recently reread it. You know, so much of my reading experience is also marveling and at the way other writers pull things off. And that is one of those books that when I reread it recently, I thought, God, this is just perfectly constructed, this book. You know, where the climax comes, how the story unfolds, the relationships between characters, the subtle tensions that are built throughout the book, the misunderstandings. It's just so gorgeously written and edited, I must say.
Yes.
And that was part of what I was looking at when I reread it. I mean, just, and that's part of the joy of reading, is being able to sort of have that other sense of like, you know, there's a way in which when you write that you're always thinking, how does this book exist in a world that's not mine? You know,
I know exactly.
Am I capable of this or am I not capable of this?
Yes.
You know, and I'm always, it's just a joy to me to find books that are so brilliant that you say, I give up. I will never do that. But it's aspirational too, because
It is aspirational. And when I'm really stuck, I love just opening something that I know is so beautiful and that I could never do as well. And instead of making me want to stick my head in a bucket of beer, it instead inspires me to try to do my best.
Do you have certain books you do that with for books you're working on? Are there?
Actually, you know, this is going to sound funny because it's not, it's The Accidental Tourist by Ann Tyler is a perfect book. It has exactly the right pacing. It has, every scene is so beautifully rendered. And so when I'm stuck on a scene or just something, I will go back and read any scene from The Accidental Tourist. It is perfect. And
that is such good advice. I feel that way a little bit about The Hours by Michael Cunningham. I can
one of my favorite.
Anywhere and get inspired. So when I was writing Piece of the World, that was the book that I would just go to my shelf, open at random, read a page when I was stuck.
That makes sense for that book for sure.
Yeah, it does. It does make sense for that book. And I want to say one other funny thing for any writers in the audience. When I started writing Orphan Train, I knew that it was a story set in the past, and I wanted it to be propelled forward really quickly. And while I was writing that book, a novel called The Lovely Bones came out. Remember the novel The Lovely Bones, which is actually brilliantly written. I mean, it was a big hit, but it was also just really quite literary and very well done. And one of the aspects of that book that really intrigued me is that it moves super fast. And so listen to how nerdy I am. I went through that book and I wrote down every first sentence that began every scene in the book. So scene.
Oh, what a great idea.
And what I discovered is that I wish I had it here in the room because I would show you what I mean, but she begins those scenes she leaps in. So she'll say something like, after everyone had left, I mean, there's no clearing of the throat, no preamble. Right. No. And so I wrote a list and I actually taped it on my wall. And when I was writing Orphan Train, I copied her. I didn't copy the words, but I copied the idea of jumping straight into a scene. Yeah. And it actually is really effective to do that sometimes.
Yes,
that kind
absolutely. Yeah. Isn't it wonderful though how we learn from each other and how and you know, she had just as many slamming her head against the window moments writing that as we do writing our books, but we all have different things that we're really good at, and it's just so wonderful to be able to learn from each other in that way, to take one thing from one writer you admire and another thing from somebody else, and to get you through those sticky parts that you feel so alone and so like no one has ever been a worse writer than you ever. And then you go to look at something and think, you know, I know it did not look like this in the first draft.
Yeah, exactly.
It was a mess. It was an unholy mess. And somehow this author got it to look like this. So it gives you hope.
Well, I had a student once who said, we went around the room talking about, I ask everyone what they're reading now. And he said, you know, I don't really read other authors. I only read my own writing. I feel that I feel, you know, I really don't have that much time to read other writers.
Oh my God.
I don't want to get influenced by anyone. Lee literally said that. And I thought, this is the perfect, perfect example of why you're never.
Oh my God. Wow. Well, you know what? It's 7:00.
I know.
I can't believe it.
We have to go.
We have to leave. But Gibson, thank you for putting this all together. Longfellow Books, thank you so much. We love you dearly. And if you don't have to buy our books, but if you're going to buy a book to get you through the next week, buy it from Longfellow. And I think Lucinda put the thing in the chat. And Christina, I just adore you. And thank you for doing this with me.
It was an honor and a privilege to be here to talk about Ernie's Ark. This amazing book. Thank you, Monica, for inviting me.
Oh,
And
thank you.
Yeah, thanks to you both. Thanks to Longfellow. And I think that we should be, as we go out, I think we need to do one thing here, which is I think that we should have a chaotic Zoom moment.
Oh, everybody unmute.
I think everybody should unmute, and I think we should toast with whatever we have.
Yay!
And I'm going to take Monica and Christina off spotlight so we can see the whole crowd.
Yay! Oh, hi, Denise.
Hello.
Hi, Robin.
Hi.
Cheers.
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 Yay.
Thank you so much.
Cheers.
Honor and a privilege.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Bravo.
Oh, thank you, everybody.
Wait. This was really fun. It's great.
Hi,
It was a wonderful
everybody.
conversation. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for doing this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh my God.
Thank you. I loved it.
So great.
Thank you, ladies.
Thanks.
Aw, Gibson, that was a great idea.
I knew you wanted to see the crowd, Monica.
I did, absolutely. Aw. Gibson, am I going to be able to see the comments after we leave the meeting?
Yes, I'll have them for you.
Oh, good. I'd love to see them. Yeah. Thank you so much, dear. Mwah.
Right. Thanks, everybody. Have a good
Okay,
night.
Christina, I love you.
All right, I love you, Monica. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye, Gibson. Josh.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.